District's Joint Powers Authority, the parties to bear their own costs. For item 5.2, the board unanimously voted to approve per the recommendation of staff. Item 5.3, board gave direction regarding the real property negotiation with the city of Cedar Creek. We did not get a labor negotiation update, and we did not have public employee dismissal, discipline, or release. And that concludes closed session. Mr. Critchfield, do we have any deletions or corrections to the agenda?
We do not.
Thank you. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For presentations and recognitions, first we have a recognition of National Native American Heritage Month. Mrs. Horn is presenting that for us.
Good evening, Board. I'm here with Susan Morla of the Ione Band of Miwok Indians, and we are here to discuss the resolution you have before you regarding National Native American History Month. Heritage Month. Did you have? Is this on? I believe that one's on. Okay.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Susan Morla. I'm a member of the Ione Band of Miwok Indians. I'm also tribal council over there as well. We have other council members here tonight with us in support of the National Native American Heritage Month resolution you guys have. We worked alongside the school district staff to create this, and finally, something in writing here in Amador County. I'm a product of Amador County Unified School District. Went through all my years of school here. Moved away to go to college and haven't been back yet, but I have a lot of siblings here. I'm one of 14. They're all still here in the county, all my nieces and nephews, and my goal soon is to move back to this county and put my kids through Amador County Unified School District. Growing up, there was not a lot of inclusion when it came to the school district, not in history books, we had one awesome teacher in elementary, in Ione Elementary, and her husband, Miss Plamondon. She made sure that we got a lot of culture and books, and we went to Tassay and did a lot of the groundwork there when it came to the statue and the museum. But other than that, we didn't even have an excuse to leave school when we had ceremony. And ceremony is most important to us because we get to carry on our traditions, whether it's oral traditions, stories, dance, and it's time to help our students here. Like I said, there's a lot. There's about 400 students here that identify as either Miwok or from some tribe that are now here, and they don't get to see anything about themselves in school. I mean, it's bad enough they talk about us in the past tense in elementary school books, but it shows a little bit of pride, and I would love to have seen a resolution here in Amador County Unified School District as a student to say, hey, that's me. But yeah, so we're here in support, and hopefully you are too.
I was also asked to pass along the support from Antoinette Del Rio at the Foothill Indian Education Alliance. They fully support this resolution as well. They are currently holding a Heritage Informational Night where many people are attending. They wish to be here. So she asked me to let you know she's in full support, and so is Foothill Indian Education Alliance.
Thank you so much. If you ladies don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and, it is a little bit long, but I'm going to read the resolution, and then we'll take action. So Amador County Unified School District Resolution 2024/2025-07, titled Recognition of National Native American Heritage Month. Whereas National Native American Heritage Month provides an opportunity to recognize and honor the vital contributions of Native Americans to the history, culture, and development of the United States. Whereas Amador County Unified School District resides on the ancestral lands of the Miwok peoples of this region who have lived on and stewarded these lands for thousands of years. Whereas Native American communities maintain vibrant cultures and traditions, uphold a deeply rooted sense of community, and have made and continue to make distinct and important contributions to the United States. Whereas California has the highest Native American population in the country and is home to 109 federally recognized tribes, with approximately 81 groups seeking recognition. Whereas the Amador County Unified School District proudly serves Native American students, representing a significant portion of its student population. Now therefore, be it resolved that the Amador County Unified School District Board of Trustees is committed to improving the academic and social emotional outcomes of Native American students and all students across the district. Be it further resolved that ACUSD is further committed to acknowledging California's true history as it relates to its Native American communities in its efforts to ensure an education for Amador County students that promotes equity, inclusion, and accountability for California Native American peoples. Be it further resolved that ACUSD, with local Native American tribes, to enrich educational experiences and foster a supportive learning environment for Native American students. Be it further resolved that ACUSD is dedicated to providing resources for teachers and staff to recognize National Native American Heritage Month, including culturally relevant materials and opportunities for students to learn about and honor Native American history and traditions. Be it further resolved that the Board of Trustees recognizes the need for continued funding and leveraging resources such as Title IX and other grants, Title VI and other grants, including Expanded Learning Opportunities Program and Title I, to support the success of Native American students. Be it further resolved that ACUSD commits to consulting with local tribes to incorporate accurate historical information, promote authentic representation, and address culturally appropriate imagery within district curriculum and school activities. Be it further resolved that the Amador County Unified School District Board of Trustees recognizes November 2024 as National Native American Heritage Month and urges all schools in the district to observe this month and Native American Heritage Day with programs and activities that honor and celebrate the diverse heritage, history, and contributions of Native Americans. Thank you so much for taking the time to write such a beautiful resolution. Thank you. Does anyone have questions or comments? If not, we are ready for a motion to approve.
I would just like to add that glad to be here for this resolution, and I'm hoping that this is a start for a continuous recognition and support of the positive impacts the tribes in the area have had on the area and continue to have.
Thank you, Mr. Crow. We're ready for a motion.
I'd like to move that we approve resolution number 2024/2025-07, recognition of National Native American Heritage Month.
Second.
I just realized this is under presentations. Is it okay for us to take action on it here? Okay. With that being said, we have a roll call vote. First, the student advisory vote.
Yes.
And yes. Mr. Crow?
Yes.
Mrs. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Marzano?
Aye.
Mr. Whitaker?
Yes.
And I'm also a yes. We now move on to challenge coin recognitions. Mrs. Clement from Jackson Junior, welcome.
All right, good evening, President Burns, members of the board, Superintendent Critchfield, Cabinet, and the wider community. My name is Sinead Clement, and I am the principal of Jackson Junior High, where we may not have the best facilities in the district, but we do have incredible people. Tonight, I'm grateful for the opportunity to recognize a few of the folks who make Jackson Junior High a wonderful place to work and to be a student. Should I call them all up here at once?
It's up to you.
All right, everybody who's here, come on up. Come on up. I'm going to start with Vincent Motto because he was the most reluctant to come tonight. Okay, Vinny, come on over. Vinny isn't just one of the most reliable custodians I've had the pleasure of working with. He is hands down the silliest. And he fully embodies our district's value of fun. If you know Vinny, you know two things for sure. He loves fishing, and he's a master of fish stories. Case in point, he once convinced me that the very gnarly scar on his arm was from a shark bite. And he let me believe that for a very long time. Spoiler alert, he was not bit by a shark, and the scar involves untempered glass and middle school. So it's appropriate he now works in one. Vinny is also a prankster, and his pranks keep everyone on their toes. Just recently, he set up an 8-foot skeleton in the librarian's chair overnight, so she'd get a good scare in the morning. And he wasn't even able to witness her reaction, and it was great. And he's a legendary thrifter, always finding things he thinks will bring joy to someone on campus or some character to our school. Like a giant red rose that now lives in the drama classroom, or this snake that showed up in our tree in the office. And I'm like, where did this snake come from? And then, of course, it had to be Vinny. But beyond the laughs and pranks, Vinny reminds us that even though we have serious work to do, like keeping desks sanitized during flu season, there's always room for a little fun. Vinny brings joy to our campus every day, and we're all grateful for it. Thank you, Vinny.
Attaboy, Vinny.
Just stay, Vinny. He wants to head back and, vacuum floors and do it. He's very conscientious. But I give him permission to stay here for the fall. Yeah. Okay. Next, Nick Acevedo. Come on up. Nick is not only our M1, he's the biggest man on campus in every sense of the word. When I introduced him at our welcome back assembly on the first day of school, I felt like I was back at a New Kids on the Block concert when I was in 6th grade, which maybe dates me a little bit. The kids went absolutely wild. Nick. And just recently, our 8th graders participated in a character dare where they had to write a note of gratitude to a staff member. Nick got more notes than anybody else. He's beloved, and for good reason. Why is Nick so loved? He has a huge heart and is a master at building authentic relationships with students. He truly believes that every adult on campus is a teacher with a responsibility to help our kiddos become happy, healthy, independent adults. He doesn't just say it, he lives it. Over the summer, when some high school students vandalized our gym, Nick was really mad. He was really, really mad. But ultimately, he stepped in with a more restorative approach. He allowed them to work off their debt by helping him for a week. And by the end, one of the boys even asked Nick for a hug. Fun fact, 58% of the Jackson Junior High student body is male. And trust me, we feel it. There is no shortage of impromptu hoops with milk cartons, apples as projectiles, and bathroom shenanigans to foil. And Nick is always willing to go where I can't, like into a suspiciously packed boys' bathroom. For many of our students, especially the boys, Nick is their go-to adult, the person they trust and relate to most on campus. Jackson Junior High wouldn't be the same without him. Yeah. All right, Tracy Fisher. Hi. So Tracy is the definition of a team player. Exactly what you'd expect from a collegiate athlete and a national champion. As our teacher in charge, she's always ready to represent Jackson Junior High on the MTSS leadership team, serve as an instructional coach, and help out with any technology needs on campus. She's incredibly dependable. She's always got my back when things slip through my brain and I forget. And she's constantly stepping up to help wherever it's needed. Tracy is the first to jump in, whether that means writing sub-plans for a colleague who's out sick, welcoming a student with behavior challenges into her tutorial, or bringing a latte to a colleague who could use a little boost. She's also co-founded our Million Word Reader Challenge, inspiring students to dive into books, even in an era of endless streaming. When asked why she's part of the Jackson Junior High team, Tracy shared that investing in her community is incredibly important to her. Her personal goal as an educator is clear and powerful: to show students that they can succeed. They can do the work, they can read and enjoy both teen novels and classic literature, and they can be kind to each other and show integrity even when no one's watching. Jackson Junior High is truly fortunate to have someone as dedicated, compassionate, and community-minded as Tracy on our team. Yeah. Dale Flint. Yeah. At Jackson Junior High, she's gonna laugh this whole time.
Or cry.
Or cry. We do both. We're lucky to have people like Dale who truly live out our district values of authenticity, integrity, relationships, courage, and fun every single day. Why is Dale at Jackson Junior High? I asked everybody this question at the beginning of the year. She said she loves this weird, wacky campus filled with wonderful people. And her personal goals: to inspire students to be their authentic selves, to make the world a better place, and to finally organize her desk drawer. Okay. So Dale brings this incredible combination of chill yet strict that somehow quiets an auditorium brimming with adolescent energy. She's skillful, quirky, has a knack for creating a place where everyone belongs. Whether they're artists, theater nerds, writers, or just looking for their place, Dale makes room for all of them. She leads our journalism class, teaching her students all about deadlines and journalistic integrity, and they publish in the Ledger-Dispatch regularly. So keep an eye out for the newest issue this Friday, right? She also puts serious thought into inclusivity. Now this is where I kind of get teared up. When she realized the drama room wasn't ideal for some of our ESN students, or students with the most needs, she moved the class out of a gen ed classroom and into the sensory room next to the ESN program so that students could fully participate. This small but profound tweak to where a class is held reinforces the idea that we are one big campus family. And if that was not enough, Dale took on an 8th grade intervention period this year. With her high expectations and her signature support, that chill but strict vibe that she's able to pull off, She's helped many students turn their grades around, all with very little direction from me. Yay. Frankly, I fully expect a movie to be made about Jackson Junior High someday. And when that day comes, I am convinced Tina Fey will play Dale, capturing her incredible, funny, and unforgettable spirit perfectly.
I can see Russia from my house.
Yeah, see, yeah, she's got it already.
Thank you.
Come on up, Sophia. Sophia Rochelle. The best, most effective teachers have an equal passion for what they teach and for who they teach. Sophia Rochelle is exactly that. A natural talent who brings her passion to every note and every student. For me, the biggest compliment I can give a beginning band is that I recognize the song they're playing from outside the building. And with Mrs. Rochelle's instruction, I always do. Her students love band. They love her, and when you're in her room, you see a truly high-functioning middle school band program in action. Yeah. When asked why she's part of the Jackson Junior High team, Sophia shared, I'm losing myself. I found it. She's here to continue the growth of our music program and to build back enrollment in the arts district-wide. Her personal goal is to expand the band's community outreach and create meaningful opportunities for students to connect through their music. Sophia's job isn't easy. She teaches multiple levels of band and choir at both junior highs and at each comprehensive high school. Despite juggling 4 different school communities, she makes an incredible effort to be present at all of them. Case in point, even when both junior highs back-to-school nights were scheduled at the same time and in the same night, she's managed to get to both. That's commitment. Nobody expects that, but she does it. Sophia is a fantastic communicator, and though she's only at Jackson Junior High part-time, she feels fully invested in our campus. She never complains about her packed schedule. She's kind, she's competent, and she's incredibly talented. Thanks to her leadership, I feel optimistic about the future of band in our schools. Jackson Junior High and our district are fortunate to have such a dedicated educator and musician. Yeah. Okay. All right, Alex Patnod, if I said his last name correctly. All right. I have a hard time with French last names, or just anything French. Okay. Being human can be hard sometimes, and everything that impacts our community impacts the students in our schools. Many of our students come to us unprepared to learn because of unmet social emotional needs or lack of coping skills. And even for students who may seem to have it all, simply going through puberty can feel like enough to push them to the edge. Fortunately, at Jackson Junior High, we have the best school counselor that I've ever worked with, Alex. Alex starts each day by greeting kids as they arrive on campus, checking in with those he knows needs extra support, scanning for students who don't seem like themselves, and sometimes going where I can't, like the boys' restroom, like Nick, to check on students. Having Alex on campus has helped create a culture where everyone belongs and where students are taught how to handle conflict productively and express differences in a civilized way. I should be better at tracking the data, but thanks to Alex's skill in running restorative circles, we've avoided many fights this year and put an end to a lot of drama. He has a real talent for bringing kids together and helping them work through conflicts. He also teaches some of the most important lessons on campus: the difference between a rock brain and a flexible brain, how to self-advocate appropriately, and how to avoid thought traps. He has taken the lead in helping roll out our character-strong curriculum, building a school where kids and adults are encouraged to be their best selves. In the words of some of our students, he's got energy, but in a good, low-key way. He's a good listener and kind to others. He always listens and helps the best he can. He's a good person to go to when you don't know what to do. Alex Patnod is an incredible counselor and a vital part of our Jackson Junior High community, making a difference in students' lives every day. Thank you, Alex. Thank you for the opportunity to recognize some of the incredible people who we have serving our kids at Jackson Junior.
Thank you for sharing. It's always good to hear good things.
Please make sure to get your picture with Haley, even you, Vinny.
We have more challenge coin presentations for the technology department. Mr. Is it Hebert? Hebert? Welcome.
Good evening, Cabinet and board members. Brian Enos started working for us in August of 2012 as a computer technician. In 2019, Brian was promoted to network technician. He plays an important role in maintaining our wireless and wired network infrastructure and key systems like Adobe Creative Cloud, Land School Air, and Destiny. He's willing to learn and take on new challenges. He took on the lead role in upgrading our wireless infrastructure last year and successfully completed it. That was quite a challenge. Pays attention to the fine details, is extremely organized with a system for daily tasks and projects and documents everything, which is helpful for the rest of the team as well. He's dependable, a man of integrity. And he is what I call the department empath. If he ever detects that you're not having a good day or you're a little off that day, you'll just kind of peek around the corner and ask, are you doing all right? And so for these reasons, I'd like to present to you the challenge coin. Thank you.
Thank you. Don't forget your photo. For employee organizations, Amador County Teachers Association, Mrs. Jensen, welcome.
Good evening, good evening. It is conference week, and I have met with 12 families today. Share our joys, our hopes, our plans for their children's jointly encouraged fantastic start of their school year and career and continued joyful journey. One concern that came up during these conferences I would like to bring before you. Oh, by the way, good evening, members of the Board of Trustees, Interim Superintendent Critchfield, members of the Cabinet, and people in the public. Thank you. One concern that came before me was the concern about the challenge that parents face to volunteer in their children's classrooms. As one parent who completed the task stated, it was unbelievable. The 14-page application, along with the 2 mandated trainings, one being the mandated reporter, and they called it boundaries, which is an adult-child relationship, keeping it professional, then to pay for a TB test, then to wait for the application to be processed. When all I want to do is help my kid's teacher by reading to some kids and help with class celebrations. Also, in my role as ACTA president, I've met with teachers, employees of our school district, who have had to complete the same application. There are 2 asks here. Number 1, reconsider and redesign the application process to help our families connect with their children within their school communities. And number 2, allow teachers to work in their children's classrooms without restrictions, recognizing that they already have met the strict standards of security clearance. That's what we ask. I really could use some more help in my classroom, and I was really grateful that parents wanted me to speak of it, and so I hope that you can help by communicating our needs there in that way. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mrs. Jensen. For California School Employees Association, Ms. Bell. Welcome.
I'm going to take 30 seconds completely off topic and just say how incredibly proud of my cousin Susan I am. Didn't she do a great job tonight? Good evening, President Burns, trustees, Interim Superintendent Critchfield, cabinet members, and community members. I am Deanna Bell, the Interim CSEA Chapter 239 President. November is a month that we find ourselves reflecting on the things that we are thankful for. I am thankful for our teachers who mold young minds each day, for our food service workers who prepare and serve 2 hot meals for our students each day, for our bus drivers who leave their homes before the sun rises to transport our students to and from school, for instructional aides who provide much-needed extra help for our students, for our maintenance staff who clean and sanitize daily to keep our students and staff safe, and for all the many other classified employees who show up day after day to make our students' day run smoothly. I am thankful that classified employees saw a few more dollars in their paychecks this month. Things I am not thankful for include seeing both my principal and vice principal spend much of the last several days covering classroom shortages. This delays many of the day-to-day operations as they are not available to meet with families, attend to behavior issues, or to sign forms. I am not thankful for my teachers having to give up their prep periods to cover shortages due to lack of substitute teachers. Last Friday, for example, we were short 3 full-day substitute teachers, and then after lunch, a 4th position had to be covered due to a teacher going home ill. I am not thankful that many of my members do not earn enough to live comfortably, needing 2nd, or in some cases, 3rd jobs, or to rely on the food bank to make ends meet. I am not thankful that our employee retention rates are terrible. However, I do have hope that the board will continue to prioritize the need to bring the district up to competitive wages. We return to the negotiating table next Wednesday, and I am optimistic that you as a
We are treated to some school consolidation updates tonight. Mr. Critchfield.
Thank you. Just wanted to provide 2 quick updates. I know there's much that has been said about being provided with updates on consolidation. I just want to remind everyone, back in May, the board approved 3 additional studies to go in concert with our environmental impact report. Those were focused on traffic, biology and paleontology, and then a water and sewer study. I know, super exciting, okay? So those are all 3 in process. We have a draft that was just recently given to us of the traffic study. Biology and paleontology continues, and water and sewer has run into some challenges, but they're working through them as we're dealing with finding very outdated systems. We're talking tracking sewer lines and water lines and not having all the proper maps and everything to know where everything is. And so all of those are in process. My 2 items really go together tonight because there was a little bit of concern brought about by members of the public a few weeks ago regarding athletics in 2025-26 school year. And so the reason I'm bringing these 2 up together is because they're so interconnected. It was discussed at school board meetings last year, the potential to combine athletics prior to consolidating our schools physically. There is a path to do that. It would require board approval. It is not something we could just arbitrarily do as the superintendent or cabinet. Those were discussions that were had. However, that was at a time when we had specifically stated that we were consolidating in August of 2026. Part of my update tonight is to say, with this environmental impact report and
numerous decisions that the board will need to make over the next several months, it is unclear whether or not we will be able to consolidate by August of 2026. I am not going to put a timeline on this right now. That may frustrate people. However, when there are too many unknowns as we're working through a process, I do not want to keep moving the goalpost. So, having said that, I believe that having a conversation about combining athletics prior to consolidating is a conversation that we should have with the board. But that should only be had when we have a firm timeline on consolidation. And because we don't have that, my recommendation is that we keep athletics separated for the 2025-26 school year. This came about because we talked about it last year. We joined a new league, the Sierra Valley Conference, and while we're in November, they're already starting to plan for fall sports next year, and they have a very simple question. Do we schedule Amador and Argonaut, or do we schedule Amador and Argonaut together? And we wanted to provide clarity with our new league partners to say, next year, please schedule Amador and Argonaut separately. So again, the interconnectedness of these two items is why I have them together. I also want to state there were many things going on with consolidation last year with numerous updates. As we're going through this environmental impact report, we will not have updates every meeting. And so my intention as well is school consolidation updates will only be on the agenda if there is an actual update. If we do not have an update, we will not have the posting saying there are no updates at this time. And of course, board, if you have any questions or comments, I'm happy to have a discussion. No action needed tonight. This is just discussion only.
Does anybody have questions or comments up here on the dais?
No, just thank you for clarification.
Of course.
Other than I was kind of excited to play with Argonaut next year. I know it would really help our girls' basketball program.
Yes, my daughter was wanting to play with you too, Peyton.
All right.
I have a question with the league topic that you brought up.
Yes.
With scheduling and or the programs. Is the league reevaluated every 2 years or every 4 years? I believe it was 2 years.
Okay, so there's I may not get the terms exact with CIF, but they do a full realignment every 4 years. They have an opportunity on a 2-year cycle to make small adjustments based on glaring needs. There are times in our section where those changes are impact maybe 1 or 2 schools, where on a 4-year realignment cycle, it could impact 20, 30, 40 member schools in the section. And so, yes, this is year 1 of a 4-year realignment cycle. And so they will be assessing everything, but most likely there will not be any changes. There could be, but most likely there will not be any changes.
After the assessment?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. I was asking because of concerns of competitiveness in the new league. Will it then be looked at after, well, it obviously will be looked at if a decision is made to stay or go, but what if there isn't enough data, info, time, whatever the case may be, that's gonna extend the goalpost, I believe is the term that you used, then what do we do? Continue to stay in a league where competitiveness is of concern?
So I believe we'll have clarity one way or the other with consolidation this spring.
Okay.
So once we have that clarity, if we know we have a clear path to consolidation, I can tell you right now in conversations with CIF, they're not even gonna entertain us moving leagues. However, if after this spring, it's clear that we won't be consolidating or consolidating could be significantly delayed, then that is something that CIF could reassess.
And there is such a thing as going, of course, if everything points to that direction, there is a possibility of going back to the mother lode because I know they realigned. Will there be openings? Then they're gonna have, if not, then kind of in a pretty
that would provide challenges, right? There's always a domino effect when you move things around, which is why on that 2-year realignment cycle, you normally see very minor changes because it's never clean. Where you move 1 or 2 schools, it normally impacts others. I believe the new Motherlode League has 6 schools, but then it actually has 8 for football because there are 2 schools that participate in football only. So they normally don't like going higher than 8 schools in a league. I also think it's important, I'm glad you bring this up to remind everyone, we don't get to pick our league. We can ask for things.
Correct.
And I have people that don't agree with me on that, and I can only speak to my own experience. When I was principal at Amador High School, one of the CIF rules is that each league has a league president, and it's required that it's one of the principals at one of the schools. So my final 3 years at Amador High, I was the president of the Motherlode League, which meant I was involved with many CIF meetings. And while I appreciate the people who I got to meet at Sonora, Sonora came to our league during that time. We very resoundingly, as a league, unified league says, we don't want them. Okay, we made that very clear. We did not want Sonora. And they put them in our league anyway. Okay, and so, again, yes, we can express opinions, we can say what we want to do, but ultimately, CIF and the committee that they utilize in realignment, it's up to them on where to put the schools.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for the more info.
Yeah, no problem.
I think that was a good question, too.
Absolutely.
Thanks for asking. So that's the end of the updates?
Correct.
Both the general and the athletics?
Yes.
I don't have any public comment cards. Bueller? Okay. That brings us to consent agenda. I feel like I need to make a public comment or something. I don't know. So it brings us to the consent agenda. We have a robust one as normal. Minutes, warrants, overnight field trip surplus, lots of donations. We have our current personnel recommendations. Are there any questions or comments for staff regarding the consent agenda? If not, we're ready for a motion to approve.
I move we approve item 13.1, the consent agenda, or 13, the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Thank you. For the roll call vote, the student advisory vote, Ms. Clement?
Yes.
Ms. Patterson?
Yes.
You said Clement.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm going to say that again. Ms. Gilliam?
Yes.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Ms. Burns, I'm sorry to interrupt. Do we have advisory votes with personnel items on consent?
Yes, they can't make motions.
Okay,
They can't move on them.
okay.
Ms. Patterson?
Yes.
Mr. Crow?
Yes.
Mrs. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Marzano?
Aye.
Mr. Whitaker?
Yes.
And I'm also a yes. And Mr. Critchfield had asked me to pause for an announcement.
And I just want to recognize Danae Merton is here with us. She was just approved 12 seconds ago. As our new principal at Pioneer Vapa Magnet School, in the words of some of the staff at Pioneer, since I stole Patty from them, who is now on cabinet, we went through a process involving multiple staff members at the campus. We actually held the interviews up at Pioneer, which was a lot of fun to do it on the campus, and appreciate all the staff members who were involved. And Danae did work for the district for quite a long time, and she's back, and so we appreciate having her and look forward to her leading Pioneer Elementary School. So thanks, Danae, for being here.
We did not have any items for communications. That brings us to our discussion action items for the night. First up, we have an introduction of ethnic studies requirement. This is a discussion-only item presented by Mrs. Horn.
All right, we'll get the little slideshow. This is timely based on our resolution we adopted earlier this evening, you will see a lot of connectivity between these two topics. So before we get going, I just want to give you a little information.
Before you get started, actually, I would like to point out that this is discussion only. And that is because you will see it on the agenda again for action. And this is just, Mr. Critchfield he's encouraging more transparency. And then, so this gives us the opportunity to present this in-depth information twice to the public instead of just once. So that's why this is discussion only. Thank you, Mrs. Horn. Sorry for the
No worries. We'll see. It was a good pause. We're trying out some new technology. I believe Mr. Hubert was here, dang it. Convenient. I'll go ahead and give you some information while they get that started. So as you said, this is an information item. The goal here is to familiarize the board with the background and development of this ethnic studies course. Just a little bit of history. Assembly Bill 101 was adopted in October of 2021 and requires the inclusion of ethnic studies as a state-mandated high school requirement. The class of 2030, I'll just take a breath when I say the class of 2030. I don't even know what that means. I can't make my brain think. The class of 2030 must take one semester of ethnic studies to graduate. Schools must offer ethnic studies starting in the 25-26 school year. So in response to that, in 2022, a group of California educators from up and down our state began the work of creating a framework and toolkits to help school districts with implementation of the requirement. The Rural Ethnic Studies Community of Practice is made up of 6 rural counties, including Amador, and regionally led by Calaveras County, and they began meeting monthly in May of 2023. What's important to note about this group is that this very active group of rural educators who have a passion and a goal to tell the untold stories and highlight in positive ways the contributions and histories of our students. So we have ACUSD educators who are very active and have been part of this work for a year and a half. Additionally, the will of this community of practice was not just to meet the requirements, but to design a course that would foster and develop critical thinking and include topics appropriate for our rural community. So going back to the resolution tonight, a lot of what we discussed in that is captured in the work that this community of practice has been doing. Our COP, Community of Practice, used the model curriculum, which is a framework. It's important to note that the state came with a framework, not a textbook or a curriculum program, to create our American Cultures course. The course brings together many of the topics and themes taught in other areas like history, social studies, and literature, and focused on representation and inclusion of the stories of our local cultures. All right, so we'll dig in a little here and see if we can. It's important to note ethnic studies is a framework of interdisciplinary fields of study. As an old teacher, I won't read slides to you. Please let me know if I need to slow down or you'd like me to read the slides. Ethnic studies, what it does is help to bring forward those untold stories. As Ms. Morla referenced, we have approximately 10% of our student population that identifies as Native in some capacity. So it helps identify and then celebrate the contributions of the heritage of our students in this course. Some of the desired outcomes for ethnic studies is a development of respect for cultural diversity and the advantages of inclusion. How it will be taught. So, at the college level, ethnic studies is sometimes taught with a specific political point of view. In the K-12 education system, ethnic studies is not taught like a college level class. It draws on topics and themes that are already present in other curriculum areas and helps us focus on the stories relevant to our students.
So our course was designed and developed by our rural community of practice, including our ACUSD educators. And they used the framework to help guide that work, specifically chapter 1 of that framework, which really dove into the how of the teaching, not the what of the teaching. This is that background I kind of told you about in the beginning, 2021, the Assembly Bill. So we're right on course for where we need to be for compliance. So because this has been around and adopted, we have larger school districts and other smaller school districts that have already been piloting some well-taught ethnic study curriculum, and they're seeing some of these benefits already. So the pilot schools are reporting amazing benefits, including some interesting ties to attendance rates, raise and standardized testing, college and graduation. I want to pause for a minute and point out something about graduation. If you were not aware, what was shared with me from Ms. Del Rio from our Indian Ed partnership, last year Amador County set a goal and had 100% graduation rate for their native students. So I thought that was important to bring attention to. Yeah, you can clap for that, right. All right, so where we are and how we're preparing. Again, our course was prepared with a rural community of practice that continues to meet monthly, and actually quite a few of them are not here right now because they are at the Native Heritage Night that's being done at the same time. It was just a scheduling fluke, but they all were very excited to have this work finally highlighted. All right, these are some of the supports that the state started top down that helped support our rural community of practice. Again, they've been working closely with other rural counties to make sure that the course that we develop is reflective and inclusive of our students. This is a little bit of a refined timeline. We're actually kind of somewhere between 2 and 3. We will be ready to offer the course next year to our 12th graders and then start refining it in the years to come. What this would look like in ACUSD, this is a semester-long course. It'll be first available to 12th grade students. It'll be housed in our history and social science department. Our course will be entitled American Cultures. And actually, there is on the horizon a financial literacy requirement that will be coming down, that we plan to couple that with the ethnic studies as a semester-long financial literacy, semester-long ethnic studies, to fulfill both of those requirements and be able to have the students ready to meet those. But more to come on that one. Here's some more information if you wanted to dig in and look at some of the resources. But I just wanted to leave you with a little bit of our next steps. At the next board meeting, we will be bringing back to you a course description and a sample syllabus that was created by our community of practice educators for your review and potential approval. Any questions?
Real quick, I want to thank that group. I spent a portion of one meeting with a group of the majority of our history social science teachers at the secondary level in the district, and they have put a ton of time into this. Nikki Gravett has taken over this project this year and leading it, and I want to thank her as she's our interim director for secondary student success, coupled with being our director of career technical education. And so I was able to meet with them and see all the energy and effort they put into this, including being thoughtful about a course name like American Cultures. And so, again, back to what Julia said, this is obviously pretty new to the board, not something we've really discussed. It is a little odd with the state with requirements because the class of 2030 will be required to have ethnic studies. Financial literacy is not required until the class of 2031. So we have 1 year there where one group needs one but not both. And so, like she said, our intention is to pair those together. But I just want to express my appreciation to all those who are involved to get this project up and running, as it is a state mandate.
Okay, does anyone have questions or comments? I think you're up, Mr. Marzano.
I have a question. Does anybody have a question? I have a question. I received a couple phone calls about this item, so I'll be that guy and ask them. Is this critical race theory? Is this a form of critical race theory?
No.
Can this be considered critical race theory?
I think people could draw conclusions for themselves, but in all of the work I've done with this group and looking at what they've done, I would comfortably say no.
Where or who do we get the curriculum from?
So the curriculum for this is not a packaged curriculum. The group, our community of practice teachers, have gone through and vetted novels. So it's more of a novel study. It's not a textbook. So they're picking, at this point, there's 4 books that they'll be using to read through and use for their discussion.
Are these university books, being it's been,
No,
isn't that the only place where it is being taught at right now? Are we pulling books from universities?
No, some of the books that one of them is a young person's guide to American heritage history. So these are books designed to be used in the high school level and approved. They come from an approved list from the state.
Okay. Thank you.
Just real quick, were there any courses that we already offer that would satisfy the requirement? Or would we have to, is this something that we have to create specifically? I'm just curious.
According to my limited knowledge, Ms. Gravette, you know more about the course that, the requirements of the Assembly bill. There were some requirements, and I don't believe we had courses that met that requirement at this point. So the creation was. Oh, are you talking about embedding? Yeah.
So there is an option with the state that you can embed it into other courses. That was left up to the community of practice to make those determinations. And our community of practice chose to create a separate course, just to keep the intent very, they wanted to give it the recognition that it really needed instead of embedding it into another history course.
I also want to mention, it's important to note, the last time we looked at our high school graduation requirements was pre-COVID. And when the state mandates a course like this, that now becomes a graduation requirement, and the fact that it's been more than 5 years since we looked at our graduation requirements, the plan is next year to get a committee together of a variety of people, including numerous teachers, to reevaluate all of our high school graduation requirements, looking forward to ethnic studies and financial literacy. Because, for example, within history social science, we currently teach freshmen a semester of geography and California history that is not a state requirement. That's a district graduation requirement. And with ethnic studies coming in, I guarantee you that's going to be one of the topics of conversation. Do we replace geography and California history with this course? Do we leave them both? There will be months-long conversations and planning to take a look at all of our high school graduation requirements. And so this is a good starting point for that. This group was focused solely on this class, not on the bigger picture, for a multitude of reasons. One, this is a very specific task. The other is it was just a group of history teachers. And when you're looking at all your grad requirements, you want teachers of, no offense, Nikki was a history teacher. Nikki was a history teacher, so I tease her. I was a Spanish teacher. So we have some fun with that. But you need teachers from all different disciplines when you're looking at your high school graduation requirements, not from any one department.
Okay, thank you. And then just to kind of quell some thoughts. When the novel studies and all the things are complete, are all of those titles and how I see the syllabus and things like that you're talking about will be publicly available to anybody who wants to check out what we're reading and things like that?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm assuming that with the proposed course syllabus that's supposed to come next month, is that it? It would probably be a good idea to get some of those books at least mentioned and everything, so people have an opportunity to see them and find out that, okay, this is what really is going to be
Absolutely.
looked at. So that was my recommendation, even though I won't be here.
Is there state money that the district receives for rolling this out?
No.
Okay,
Shocking.
surprise.
Unfunded mandate.
We love those. Are there any additional questions or comments? I am going to offer up that I am so nonplussed about this new class because I am a proud graduate of Argonaut High School, and I had probably an embedded version of American cultures with a huge emphasis on Native American history. So I think this is fantastic. I think it's good. I think it is very relevant to us, where we are, our students, our community, and I look forward to seeing the curriculum and the syllabus. So thank you. Nonplussed means I'm unbothered.
I'm glad you clarified that, because I was wondering. And I too I feel similarly to you, Ms. Burns.
Our next discussion action item is the CSEA 239 Successor Contract Agreement. Dr. Palazuelos.
Good evening, trustees. Board President Burns. Very pleased to share that the Amador County Unified School District and working with our partners with CSEA Chapter 239, we're able to reach agreement. This is a successor agreement as it is presented to you. The Chapter 239 did ratify this, and we're just asking for your approval on this successor contract agreement with our partners with CSEA 239.
Thank you, Dr. Palazuelos. Thank you. Are there any questions or comments? If not, we are ready for a motion to approve.
I move to approve item 15.2, the CSEA 239 Successor Contract Agreement.
Second.
Thank you, and thank you, ladies, for refraining. I will go ahead and get the student advisory vote.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Gilliam. Ms. Patterson?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Crow?
Yes.
Mrs. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Marzano?
Aye.
Mr. Whitaker?
Yes.
I'm also a yes. That item passes unanimously. 15.3 is a discussion-only item of great interest. It is the elementary school boundary adjustments. This will be presented by Mr. Critchfield. We did see a little bit of information on this already, and this is the more in-depth version.
Yeah, thank you, and we did have a discussion last month about this very topic, and there were some requests from board members for clarification and more data. I hope that the slides that we've compiled for this evening will help answer some of the questions that you had. And so I'm going to wait for it. The clicker's going to come my way. It's a random pet peeve of mine is saying next slide. So we have a clicker now so people can do their own driving. Okay, so current boundaries. This is just a quick review. This is the enrollment of each of our 6 elementary schools, with the total being 2,070. There was a small correction, I believe last meeting I said we had 36 students from outside the district. It's actually 22. There were 14 kids hiding within the county lines that I was able to find. And so just to clarify, that's 22 out-of-county elementary age students. We do have more inter-districts total, but we're, again, just talking elementary age students. And so if you look at the numbers on the furthest to the left under current enrollment and look at total student population within the boundaries, you can kind of see the inflow and outflow of students. So you have an area like Ione Elementary with its current boundaries actually has more students that live within the boundary than actually attend. And inversely, you have Jackson Elementary with more students attending who actually live within the boundary. And you see that as well with Sutter Creek. And so again, or Sutter Creek is close. Pine Grove, I believe, was the other one. Yeah, has a few more enrolled than actually live within the boundary. Part of this was identifying those two middle columns, the transfers in and out of a student population of 2,070 having 385 transferring in, 363 transferring out. That means transferring within the district besides the 22, right? So 363 are moving from one school to another within our own school district. That's a very high percentage of elementary age kids going to a school that doesn't fit within their boundary. And so based on the proposed boundary, this is what would happen, is if we didn't do anything else and we just changed the boundaries, it would actually eliminate about 150 inter-district transfers, where those boundaries would move, and these are students that live on the edge of a boundary and attending the school just outside their boundary. And if we move those, it eliminates 150 of those inter-district transfers, which I think is significant. And then this just puts all the data side by side. So you can see what the current enrollment would be and proposed and how that would alter each school based on the boundary changes. There was also brought up about capacity. So this goes back to our 2022 Facility Utilization Master Plan, affectionately referred to as the FUMP. And that gives our school capacity. So that comes directly from the report. And using those metrics, you can see that any proposed boundaries would still have the student population fit within the capacity of those schools, okay? And then as far as maps go, here's what we currently look like. Here's what it would look like. And I did a side-by-side to try to make it easier for everybody to follow. And so you can see the green to the furthest north, that is Plymouth Elementary. That's one school where those two areas affected that are added to the school, the majority of students already attend Plymouth Elementary. You can see Sutter Creek Elementary is reduced fairly significantly, and we've added to Pine Grove and Pioneer on the northern and western sides of those boundaries. And then we've sorted out a few things between Pine Grove, Sutter Creek, and Jackson, which is our area that is the most mixed of students from all three schools around Climax Road and Ridge Road, if you're familiar with that area. And so this identifies these areas in red that are numbered, the potential areas that would change. And so there are 8 areas that we've identified for change. As far as next steps go, the plan would be to coordinate with our transportation department over the next month to ensure that all of this is functional within our routes and any route modifications that would need to be made for transportation for our elementary students. We will have a community input meeting at the district office on December 2nd, and we will make sure to get out plenty of announcements on that meeting. We're targeting 6 p.m. that night in the district office conference room. And then we plan on bringing a recommendation to the board in January. If the recommendation is approved by the board, then very quickly after that, we will notify all impacted families of the boundary change, and then we will update inter-district transfer paperwork to reflect the boundary changes. Even though we haven't taken action yet, I mentioned this last meeting, my strong recommendation will be to allow any student who is currently attending a school to not be displaced by the boundary change. But so this will take multiple years to get everything in alignment with the current boundaries, but the intention is not to displace any current students or families. And I'm going to go back to this map, and I'm sure you have questions.
All right, we'll just start down the line. Ms. Gilliam, did you have any questions?
No, I don't.
Ms. Patterson?
Not at this time.
Mr. Crow?
Just to kind of, I guess, reiterate what has been said, these maps, you utilize that program where the current students' addresses are, and that you just use that to come up with something where you know where the kids are going.
Yeah, so the way the program works, obviously I can't show its full capabilities at a public meeting, but it does plot every student in the district on the map, and they're all color-coded based on the school they attend. You can analyze the data in each area to see those trends. And like I mentioned last board meeting, when you haven't touched your boundaries in 40 years, the community starts to shift the boundaries for itself as things change.
Thank you.
And do we feel that this change is going to be beneficial in regards to transportation, which we struggle with in any way, or?
Yes, I mean, for example, I'll use just one example. If you notice Plymouth, right now, a large portion of Fiddletown Road is supposed to go to Sutter Creek. And no matter how you Google it, and if you live in this county, to go on Fiddletown Road, to get to Sutter Creek, you go right by Plymouth Elementary School, right? So talk about inefficient with the boundary. So many things like that were analyzed.
Okay. No, I know I asked a lot of questions at the last meeting when we had discussed this, so, I mean, this has already been said before, I just don't want to displace kids that have already been going to school, and then obviously siblings and stuff, so as long as we can make that work, then that's.
Absolutely.
Mr. Marzano?
I don't have any questions.
Excellent. Mr. Whitaker?
I have a few comments and things. I think it's looking to be a real good plan to consolidate things that are already being consolidated by the community itself. You know, it's just cleaning it up so it makes it there. And your thoughts of, I like your thoughts of about how if a student is in a school, we're going to try everything we can to keep them there so they aren't displaced, you know, in the middle of it, along with their siblings. But if they wanted to choose to change to another school, you know, follow the new boundaries, they would certainly be allowed to, correct?
Absolutely.
You know, so I think that's very good. And one thing I just want to throw out there, I've noticed our website, right now, the current intra-district transfer agreement is now open.
It is open, yes.
So I wanted to get that out there, just in case somebody was considering trying to move to that, but keeping in line with this, I think it looks pretty good.
Okay, thank you.
Did anybody want to ask their questions from last week again, or anything? No? Okay. Mr. Critchfield, I appreciate that you took the time to actually show the current and the proposed boundaries on here, and just to reiterate again that a lot of these boundary changes will simply take the students who are currently on a transfer and just put them in the boundary for the school that they prefer today. So when we are minimizing the impact on our families in that manner and also allowing them the grandfather option, I really appreciate that respect for the continuity of those students' educations. Since this is a discussion-only item, we do not have any action for this. Brings us to 15.4, the GAN resolution. That is a terribly undescriptive name. Mr. Norton?
Thank you so much, Board. So for the GAN resolution, essentially it's the calculation that's part of our fiscal year close each year. We actually are a little bit delayed in this process. It should have been done last month, but we are getting it taken care of here. Annually, Amador County Unified School District must establish the GAN limit for the prior fiscal year, or in this case, it would have been the 23-24 fiscal year, and a projected GAN limit for the current fiscal year, or in this case, now we're in 24-25. This is in accordance with Proposition 4 passed in 1979 and established the provision of Article 13B and applicatory statutory laws in the California Constitution. Essentially, the GAN limit is to establish a fiscal safeguard intended to constrain the yearly spending by state and local public agencies, and the calculation itself is purely a function of inflation and population growth annually, to determine based on what the prior year's appropriation limit should be. To that end, the Amador County Unified School District has calculated this limit and recommends that the board approve the attached resolution. Any questions? I'm available for them.
Do we have any questions from the dais? If not, we are ready for a motion to approve.
I'll move that we approve Resolution ACUSD 2024/2025-08, the GAN limit.
I'll second.
Thank you. For the roll call vote, the student advisory vote first. Ms. Gilliam?
Yes.
Ms. Patterson?
Yes.
Mr. Crow?
Yes.
Mrs. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Marzano?
Aye.
Mr. Whitaker?
Yes.
I'm also a yes. Thank you, Mr. Norton. And now I'm going to open the public hearing. Amador County, sorry, one second. Public hearing is to consider the anticipated energy cost savings and other operational benefits related into entering into a contract for the purchase and installment of energy-efficient upgrades per Government Code Section 4217, which is the Healthy Air, Plumbing, and Efficiency Programs called CalShape, because everything has a nickname. Does anybody want to make a public comment during the public hearing? If not, we're going to go ahead and close the public hearing. Brings us to 15.6, the Energy Services Agreement. Mr. Norton.
So this is a discussion-only item. We actually will have the discussion and action item on next board meeting in December. So this is mainly get the information out there, and we actually have Nate Schlegel from Sizer Co. here in attendance tonight to answer any questions potentially that may come up as with regards to this. But essentially, this is a companion item to the previous public hearing item. Essentially, apologize here. So this is tied closely with the CalShape grant. Essentially, the funds that the district has received as a part of the CalShape grant are used to essentially provide process improvement, or streamlined process. Oh, I'm misreading my notes here, so I apologize here for this. But the funds are designated for use to be assessed maintenance and repairs of existing HVAC systems to meet minimum ventilation standards, or replacement of or installation of new HVAC systems if necessary to improve indoor air quality, carbon dioxide, CO2 monitors in the classroom, and to ensure proper ventilation levels. So yeah, with that, actually, Nate, I'd love to have you come up and if you could speak more to the actual scope of the project so we can give a good background here.
Good evening. My name is Nate Schlegel with Sizer Co. Energy Solutions. So yes, the CalShape grant program, because we love acronyms, there is a lot of paperwork to it, but it's actually more simple than it appears. So actually, I want to start by mentioning a couple of things. One, I wanted to shout out Kelly Breeding for securing the funds for your district, because I'm sure none of you know this. You clear the deadline before they shut the program down by about a couple of days. So she was personally instrumental in securing $800,000 of grant money for the district. So I wanted to make sure to mention that because she was on top of everything. And when I say mountains of paperwork, I mean it's mountains of paperwork. So it is a very prescriptive grant program. It specifically lists out 4 things, and the dollar amount is tied to those 4 things at individual schools, cannot be moved, cannot be changed, and it is the assessment of all the units in the district, new CO2 sensors in every classroom, but along with those new CO2 sensors, you're going to get new thermostats that are networkable, a dashboard online, so that the facilities department can actually monitor how those units are running, the CO2 levels, use set point. So it actually increases efficiency quite a bit by doing that. You get filters for every unit in the district, and then 20% of that funding is actually for repairs that are found during the assessment phase. So that's, in a nutshell, the scope of the work that we're talking about. The public hearing and the contracting portion of it is in parallel with the grant program. Is now that you have the money, how do you actually contract to do the work? And because it's very prescriptive, it's advantageous to find an efficient way to try to contract to do the work. And this is the most efficient way to do that, because the government code 4217 basically says you can contract to do an energy efficiency project if the savings is greater than the anticipated cost of the project. In your case, the anticipated cost of the project is zero because it's covered by grant funds. So this is all of the stuff in the background that goes into being able to legally spend the money that the state gave you. So that's, in a nutshell, what we're doing is providing a proposal to do the grant work for the amount of the grant, not to exceed the amount of the grant, so that you can actually implement what the state has as part of the grant program, which brings you up to the standards of a different assembly bill, AB 2232, which was passed, which makes the ventilation and CO2 requirements of the CalShape grant program mandatory in a couple of years, regardless of whether or not you got grant money. So basically it was the carrot and the stick. They said for the last 4 years, here's all this grant money, do the work, do the work, do the work. And then they passed an assembly bill that said, by the way, if you didn't take the grant money, you're gonna have to do it anyway. So thankfully, you guys got the grant money right before they pulled the rug out from under us. There was actually a due date of July 31st to get all the paperwork submitted. You handled all that paperwork in June. On July 1st, we received an email that said, we're cutting off the program, there's no more funds. So there were a couple school districts that I was working with that were halfway through the process and they didn't get the funding, which was very disappointing to say the least. So that is, in a nutshell, the contract and the proposal are to perform the work contained in the grant.
Are there any questions or comments? No?
I have a question. I'm trying to figure out how to ask it. You just said perform work as it was said in the grant.
Yes.
How much will that benefit us? Because I know verbiage in grants is very particular.
It's going to benefit you, one, by meeting the requirements of the new assembly bill, but more it's the network thermostats and CO2 sensors is a huge benefit to the facilities department. To have a dashboard where you can see live online every classroom in the district and what the set point levels are, the scheduling, the CO2 levels, that's a huge benefit. A round of filters is just basically a relief from the maintenance budget for not having to do a round of filters. The assessment report it can be a benefit if used properly. So there's a 15-page report on every single unit individually in the district that you will then have. So you're going to have a health check basically on every piece of HVAC equipment in the district. So you'll be able to look at how they're performing, because they have to perform flow tests on them, the age of them, and you'll be able to basically map out your priorities for the next probably decade as far as what units are going to need more attention than others. So I think there's a huge benefit to it personally, because it's, again, being able to do it with grant money means that if used properly, you can really sort of help your facilities department and have a little bit of budget relief at the same time.
Oh, absolutely. For our HVAC systems, I think any help is drastic help needed with our systems. I was curious because of exactly that. Our systems are pretty jacked.
Yeah.
Is that going to go towards like Plymouth or Amador, or in my head, I'm thinking HVAC systems like that. And you've presented to us, Mr. Critchfield, that the not being able to restore those
Yeah, the Plymouth and Amador situations are going to be outside this grant. Those are, I think you're referring to the swamp coolers.
Yes.
Yeah, those are projects that we've been working on outside of the grant, but we have hundreds of HVAC units
For sure.
throughout the district. Just the 20% alone on repairs is well over $150,000 that can be spent on repairs. Also, just the amount of savings we'll render for our units, but not just savings, but not working our units. We do a pretty good job of heating and cooling empty rooms. So when you have a system that is automated and networked, then we will stop doing that as much as we have been.
So do you think this agreement is definitely worth the full $803,000 in grant money?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So, and actually, to that point, if I may, the amount of money contained within the grant is based off of an audit that we performed prior to applying for the grant. So there's a specific amount of money that they give per room for thermostats, a specific amount of money per filter, and that amount was determined in 2020 when they established the program. So part of what our company, in conjunction with ACO, who does a lot of your maintenance, who's our subcontractor partner, what we decided to do is, I think about 75 to 80% of our business as a company is K-12 districts in California. That's who we work with. And so we decided, one, we're gonna make sure we get the grant money for as many school districts as possible and not charge to do the work of the application, because we had the expertise to do it efficiently, and the process to apply was just, it's more difficult than it should be. The other thing is that in conjunction with our subcontractor partner, we decided to make sure that we could perform the work contained in the grant for the grant amount. Because it was starting to get to the point where I know that some companies were saying, the grant amount's not enough to actually do the work. At which point, yeah, it's nice to do it, but if you're having to throw $20,000, $30,000, $50,000, school districts don't just have tens of thousands of dollars to throw at something. And so, to be completely honest, we're making less money on this than we make on most of the work that we do. But it's important for us as a company to take care of small, medium-sized K-12 school districts, because that's our client base, that's who we work with, and it's important to us and to ACO as well.
I have a question about the CO2 sensors. I've never heard of a sensor for CO2 for an HVAC. I know you have CO monitors for carbon monoxide, but carbon dioxide is something that's in this room naturally because we're in here breathing.
Yep. And there are certain, this is based off of a study that was done a while back, actually, a university study on the impact of CO2 levels on how students learn, and basically the effect it has on your mental capacity when the CO2 levels are too high. And so the set points are actually prescribed within the grant, as far as the CO2 needs to be below a certain parts per million, because if it exceeds that, then there's evidence that shows that it actually impacts how the students learn.
Okay, you've got the sensor in there and the level gets too high. What occurs at that point in time?
An alarm goes off and goes to at least Joe Cruz and probably someone else, and it says the CO2 level in this classroom has exceeded what the set point is. And depending on how you want the system set up, it'll automatically open actuators to get fresh air into the room. Or, this is one of the practical things of having done this enough times, check what time it is. If the kids just got back from recess or lunch, then you probably ignore it for about 5 minutes and it'll get back to normal, because 25 sweaty teenagers running into a room all at the same time, breathing heavily because they just got back from running around, the CO2 is going to go past that set point. So maybe give it a minute and it'll normalize. But district staff will get an alert and then can take appropriate action as far as opening windows, opening actuators, getting fresh air into the room to make sure that it is proper levels.
Thank you.
Yep.
So didn't we just get a bunch of thermostats?
Not just, that was part of the Optera project back in 2017, 2018, but it was not comprehensive for all of our HVAC units.
Okay, I had to ask.
It's my favorite thing to talk about.
I agree with you utilizing the grant funds that we were able to get, especially if they're now mandating this. The whole CO2 thing in the room kind of reminds me of like, are there too many cows? Like, I don't know, this seems a little, that's literally what that reminded me of. It's like, okay, there's too much CO2, the kids can't work. I don't know. Anyway, that's just a thought, but I agree with using the grant money that we have, especially if they're now, mandating without funding, so.
I would imagine it's more of an issue in the older buildings, which we probably have some things that would be considered older buildings. That don't breathe like they should, like newer buildings, so.
Probably breathe through the cracks in the wall.
Yeah, so this is discussion only. Are there any additional questions for discussion? Thank you so much for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, we will take action on this at the next meeting.
Excellent. So food services, spending plan, budget agreement, Mr. Norton. This is also a discussion-only item for tonight.
So I invited Mr. Pingree to come join me here today. I figure his wealth of knowledge with regards to food service and everything food service is well worth it here today to give you guys a good background on what we're doing here. So at the last board meeting, we had discussed Fund 13. That's our cafeteria fund, and we had identified that we are in a surplus there. Our fund balance is a little over 3 million, and so we are in excess of what we are allowed to have in that fund. So with that, we had noted we are going to be putting together a spending plan. This here tonight is our presentation that is that spending plan on how we plan to spend down those funds over the next 3 years.
Can I ask a couple of questions?
Please.
So even with food costs increasing, we have managed to accumulate a large surplus.
Yeah, well, actually,
we'll get into that
in the
yeah.
presentation. So
Okay.
I'll explain where that money's
How
coming
this
from,
got
how
there.
we're getting it. But yeah, that's a great question. So I'd like to start basically with history of the program, where we were, where we are now, and where we plan to go in the future. So when I first got here in 2015, we were in contract with our Cisco, Danielson's, Gold Star, our food suppliers. So for that first year, everything we had was already preset. We had to do what we had to do. That first year we combined breakfast and lunch. We're doing 453,099 meals. That was and we were doing about 2% scratch cooking. So most of that stuff came in a pre-cooked bag called BIB, so boil in bag. So it would come in you name it. It was turkey and gravy, macaroni and cheese, chili, anything you can make from scratch was in a bag. We cook our own stuff. Our spaghetti, our chili, macaroni and cheese, all that stuff is cooked from scratch in-house. Our pizza's made now, and we're kind of getting to that here. We were serving donuts and gummy worms and Pop-Tarts, chocolate powdered donuts. The perception of the food program was horrible. And when I first came in here, one of the things I said, if I had to continue doing this type of stuff, then I didn't want the job. My job is to set that bar higher, continue to raise that bar. We reach it, we raise it again. That's kind of what we started doing. So then we moved into more of now, we started actually our second chance breakfast along with our breakfast, our lunch program at all sites. We also started the summer feeding program, which we've been doing for 3 or 4 years now, averaging 45 to 44,000 meals per summer.
Are those scratch cooking?
No, the summer program is bagged items. We will make like our own submarine sandwiches. We'll do turkey wraps, chicken wraps, buffalo salads, that kind of stuff. But in that program, since it's a grab and go, it really can't be scratch cooking. But that leads into a slide further down the line here. We did actually feed Amador County as well as Calaveras County with MOU for all the libraries in Calaveras County. And that increased our summer meals to 45,000. We also, side note, for the size of our district here, there's a congregate feeding, which kids have to come into the building, eat the meal there, and then they clean up and go. We actually offer a non-congregate feeding where they can come pick up the meal. They're offered all the same stuff, all the same salad bars, all the food, but they could take it. And out of our district, we serve the most non-congregate meals in the state of California, which is huge. We also took over the after-school snack program this year. That's going to lead into another 44.
But why, can you just let me know, I'm sorry to interrupt, but why is it that we serve so many non-congregate meals in our district? What is the, what's the benefit of that?
It's easier for districts to account for, say, that one child getting a meal. They know that kid received everything they had. They can account for it. They got, yes, they came through the salad bar. Yes, they received the meal. I saw them eat it. It's easier for most districts in California just to do that. Because if you do non-congregate, it requires more. You got to travel to different locations to drop food off. You got to have, like I said, Calaveras County comes over. We're able to feed more meals that way with a non-congregate because anybody under the age of 18 in the state of California can come get a meal here. And that's why we're doing, Sacramento can come up here. Anybody under the age of 18, no questions asked, they're all free.
When you say that, that's during school season or during the off season?
The summer program.
Right.
So that starts the Monday after school's out.
Right.
So we try to make it to where there's no lapse in any kind of meals that kids may not have in the summer. And we really, when we first started the program, we weren't sure it was even going to work, right? Because no one did it here. It has never been done here. But obviously by serving 45,000 meals, it's showing that kids, and that's only 17 days worth of food. So it shows that kids need it. So we are very proud to offer that. And then the after-school snack program we took over this year, that's going to increase our numbers again by another 44,000 meals. We're averaging about 1,280 snacks per week at the elementary sites. So they'll get their breakfast, their lunch, any after-school snack program, they get the snack also. Now, when it comes to the KIT funds, which is a Kitchen Infrastructure and Training Grant, that's something I applied for a couple years ago. We ended up getting $517,000, and that was under the assumption that we were going to commit to a 40% scratch cooking. We're actually depending on the menu, we're between 40 to 60% scratch. And it's more a quick scratch because we do have items, like a quick scratch, if you're making, say, a shepherd's pie, all the vegetables come in diced. That's a pre-cooked, or a quick scratch. We cook it all, we season it, we make that up, the soups, the sauces, that's all done on site. We actually, and then also with supply chain assistance grant, which we're still having problems with getting food at some of these locations because COVID kind of started that whole process of not being able to get food. So because of that and the cost we incurred during COVID, they're kind of compensated for items that we had purchased for that. So that's another 117. So 600 and basically what, $30,000 of the 1.5 million is in grants, which that money will be spent down and that will, that'll be gone. And just to show the number, one of the reasons we have a lot of this extra money is, the first year we were doing 453,000 meals. Last year we did 656,517 meals, and that's in 180 days. That's huge. So that's an increase of 203,000 meals. And at $4.35 per reimbursable meal, it adds up quick. So that's a lot of that money came from that. And then we'll get into commodities here if you want to go.
Yeah.
I have a question. You said a $4 reimbursable meal. Are you including the numbers for the summer program? And if so, isn't that free from the state, all those meals on the summer program?
So, yes, well, they are. So the way the commodity or the program works is we pay up front for all the food. And then for every reimbursable meal we serve, we get reimbursed from the state and federal to a combined total of $4.43 for a free meal for lunch, $2.84 for a free meal for breakfast. So at the end of the month, we send our claims in. Hey, we served 55,000 meals this month. We get this much money back, and we're averaging between $180,000 to $215,000 a month in reimbursements because of the amount of meals we've served.
So it's got to a point to where, in some cases, we are actually netting a profit every meal we serve because the cost of that meal was less than the reimbursable rate. And so that's also helped fuel this surplus. Yeah. And I'll let Mike talk more about the commodities.
Yeah, so the way the commodity program works, for every reimbursable lunch we serve, we get an extra 45 cents, which roughly comes out to about $195,000 a year that goes into a commodity account. 5 times a year, the state will come out with a list, say, here's products you can buy. And it's anything from Del Monte fruit, fresh fruits and vegetables, sliced cheeses, shredded cheddar, shredded mozzarella, ground beef, chicken products, pancakes, waffles. There's frozen fruit cups. There's, you name it, it's on there. So basically what you do is if I want to buy a case of ground beef, I can get that case of ground beef for $3.40. If I was to go to Cisco, you're talking about $125 per case. Everything is $3.40. 40 pounds of raw turkey is $3.40. 40 pounds of cheese, 40 pounds of sliced cheese, everything is $3.40. So the way most districts should do it but don't is that you should utilize every commodity product you have and create a menu based off of that. So that's when we get our chili. We get diced tomatoes. We get our tomato paste, our tomato sauce. We get our beans, our legumes. All that stuff is commodity. So I'd say 70% of the stuff we buy that we use in our menu is commodity product. And so in the past, like say Pine Grove Elementary, if I was doing turkey and gravy the old way in that boil in a bag, it was working about $157 to feed the turkey and gravy for that site. With us buying the turkey from scratch and making that, I can feed the same amount of kids for about $35. So again, if we're getting $4.35 back in reimbursement and it's costing me for the whole meal $2.40, that's how we're making money. Now, there's a couple of different ways that a lot of districts don't use this. What they'll do is they will divert commodities. So I could say, okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and send all my shredded cheddar, all my mozzarella, my flour, my tomato paste, all that stuff to a company. You guys are going to produce pizzas for me. And instead of me paying $100 for a case, I get it for $85 a case. That's how a lot of districts will divert commodities. Again, I can make that same pizza for about 15 cents per slice. It's just, yeah. So that's where the money's really coming from.
So, and overall, this led to a net income last year of $726,000 roughly. Part of this was tied to the grants that Mike had mentioned before, the KIT and supply chain assistance grants. But just in our food service process alone, we netted $584,000. So that's just 1 year alone. And actually in the prior years to that, it was closer to about $800,000. So that's how we built this up over the last few years. And it's led us to where we are today. So this resulted in our ending fund balance, as we mentioned before, the $3 million. We are allowed to keep 6 months worth of expenditures, and so the way that calculation worked out, we have about 1.6, 1.7 million of that piece, which led to our excess to where we are today of the 1.5. So then we go to the food service spending plan. So this is how we plan to spend the funds over the next 3 years. Essentially what it is highlighting is, well, majority of it is going to be spent in 25, 26 is the plan, as we're already partway through 24, 25. So implementing some of these things will take a little bit of time. But it's broken into different kinds of buckets, and we'll go into what those specific pieces are as we go forward. But you'll see speed of service, participation, meal quality, menu, personnel training, move up deferred maintenance as much as possible that is applicable to the types of spending you can do, as well as reduce future costs. The Fund 13 itself is very limited into the scope of what you can do. You can't just go buy a new kitchen, 100%. Like you can't build a whole new facility building for it. So what you have to do is take almost the current infrastructure and you can renovate and update and in that particular pieces, but it needs to be just the kitchen, so you can't really expand beyond that scope too much. So in that sense, we're kind of limited in other things. And so just a note that basically school food agencies should consider additional expenditures that focus on improving meal service quality, efficiency, and participation. And I'll say improving meal service quality, but it's like continuing to improve, because what you've seen what Mike's already done here is significant since he started.
I have a question.
Please.
On the graph here in the food service spending plan, meal quality and menu, this school year was spent 11,330, and the projected for next year is 514,000 you're going to spend on the meal quality?
We'll get into the specifics of that on the ensuing slides, which will really direct how that's going to happen.
Okay.
So we'll start with speed.
Okay, so yeah, to increase the speed of service participation, we are going to need upgraded equipment. There's some ovens that when I went to school here at Jackson Elementary, I think it's the same oven that I went to school on. So some of the things, those we're going to replace ovens. We have a plan to replace, I think it's 14 different ovens. Ione Junior is about 3 days away for their completion of their new walk-in refrigerator and freezer. Argonaut High School last year got a new walk-in refrigerator, a new freezer in anticipation of the consolidation for the school. We also have on, walk-in coolers, walk-in freezers. We do plan on remodeling the Ione Junior Kitchen, which if anybody's been down, I know that, like James, you went to Jackson Junior and saw the so-called kitchen, right? So the kitchen at Jackson Junior and the kitchen at Ione Junior, I believe were kind of afterthoughts. It was like, we got to feed the kids out of someplace, so let's put them in here. They do not have ovens. They have a cook and hold, which is basically a glorified hot box. It'll heat up for whatever time you set it for a temperature, and then it kicks off and goes into a hot holding. It's not efficient. It does not brown. It's not a convection oven. It does not conduct any kind of heat in there.
Sorry to interrupt, I got a quick question.
Yep.
When you do your upgrades, like for the stove, does that also include, say some of these places have had a stove that hasn't been renovated for years? Does that include if you have to do rewiring?
So part of the KIT funds allows us to, if we didn't have the KIT funds, the wiring, some of those things would have to be on the maintenance department or, the general fund. Because it's kitchen infrastructure and training, we are allowed for certain things, so electrical, and one of the things in here is for the junior, but dedicated new power boxes, just dedicated lines to equipment. The installation of all those ovens, any part of the installation is on us. It does not affect the general fund at all. We actually are not reliant on the general fund, which is great. But unlike most districts in California, they are reliant on the general fund. They are a burden on the district. But yeah, we are actually replacing the ovens at Pine Grove got a new one, but we're looking at Pioneer, Plymouth, Ione Junior, Jackson Elementary, every site except for Sutter Creek Primary. That's going to take some extra stuff. We got to do Ansel system and basically recreate the whole kitchen in there. But every site is going to be upgraded to brand new equipment. They will all have stuff to actually, which will actually increase the quality of the meal. The better equipment we have in there, the more options they have to actually prepare that meal. It's amazing that Jackson Junior and Ione Junior produce what they do because they don't have a kitchen. They will.
And I was there today, and they were telling me about how when they run certain things and they also power something else across the way, it blows the circuit. So they constantly run into that issue. So this should help renovate some of those pieces.
Yeah, and that's the same with Jackson Junior. Right. So Jackson Junior, Ione Junior, we're looking at kitchen remodels. That's ovens. They'll have ovens. They'll have burners. They can start making their own sauces. They can, they can really start increasing that scratch cooking. They're doing a great job now with what they have, which isn't much. We're also going to implement, I actually have a food show this weekend, a lot of these things I can look at, digital menu boards, which will help increase the speed line. They can actually see the menu before they get up to the line and decide what they want. So we're going to look at those for all sites. Additional lunch items, once we get this equipment in, we'll be able to offer more items. And that's at elementary, high school sites and junior high. Also additional breakfast items. That's just to increase population. Even though we're still doing 600 and something thousand meals a year, we're still missing, another probably 50 or 60,000 more meals we can get. And I believe we'll get there. And that's going to require additional staff, additional training days. All that stuff's going to take a little time. We have talked about doing that.
And that's part of the reason why some of these costs are going to be more so for next year or the year after, as it's going to take time to implement those particular pieces, whether it's new staff or whether it's additional days, which at the moment would have to be voluntary days, but we will have to work that out through negotiations and other things.
Yeah.
So really quickly, this money that we have excess, we could hire more staff with it or give more hours or whatever that is with this money?
Yeah, so I don't know how much we can go into, but our plan is to actually get to hire more staff members. I think we got to slide down further on, but our goal is for the summer program is to get away from the SAC lunch aspect of it, do a breakfast they can take home for the next day because we want to have them at their house, but offer hot meals. So they can actually come in, get a full salad bar, get the hot meal, they can eat it there or take it, wherever they want to do. So we want to increase the quality of the meals. We want to increase just the amount of kids that are coming to eat. We want to reach as many kids as possible, and that's been my goal since day one. so far, so good. But we're also looking into a CalFresh program, and that's basically what that comes down to is farm to school. So we're looking at, there's multiple aspects of it they can do. It's an outside farming. We can do also farms at each of the school sites. That product it's part of the educational process. The kids go out and tend it. They learn how to grow. They talk about the process. That produce then comes into the kitchen and goes on the salad bar, and they get to eat the fruits of their labor. That's a grant process to go through. We have meetings in 2 weeks with CalFresh about that. So that process is starting. We're looking at doing that. Again, so adding the nutrition education part of it. Some of the stuff, what we'd like to do is if we can get them in, 5 or 6 days prior to the start of school. Right now, they got to show up basically the day of school. It doesn't give me any time to come in and train and clean and prepare. So they've been coming in and time carding, but it's not mandatory. But if we can get them in and say, hey, here's your 10 new things we're doing for this year, and I can actually sit down and we can go through, this is how you cook it, this is how you prepare it, this is how you serve it, you chill it, the whole aspect of that, to get that training so they can take back to their school sites and reproduce that meal.
And ideally, too, it would be not just our internal staff training those pieces, but we would look to external sources as well, who could also potentially provide additional training and skill set for our folks.
Can I ask a stupid question, Mr. Critchfield, or maybe Mr. Norton has the answer to it? Our collaboration days, kitchen staff doesn't do their collaboration days?
No, so what happens is we still, any minimum day, collaboration day, it really affects the kitchen as serving longer. So we can't get the half day off. They're still producing meals and cleaning up until 2 o'clock. By then that's their 8 hours.
Would the theory of the collaboration day at some point in your day be helpful for you guys? For things like that?
I mean, I would say it's kind of hard considering the time that you need to be in play. It would almost need to be a day outside of the school day to be able to make that
Or
work.
after hour, yeah, for sure.
And we run into the issue with the 8-hour day in some cases.
Yeah, they're still serving breakfast and lunch on a minimum day. So, yeah, it doesn't really.
Ideally, it would be if we can get 5 or 6 days prior to the start of school. That's the deal. We can kill the training because there's nothing interrupting their day. You don't have to say, okay, well, hey, we only got 45 minutes to learn how to make this because you're going to serve your lunch right now. We can get them all in there like you would do a training class or like you would do a culinary class and get them in there and just show them every aspect. So we are looking at customized food service vehicles. We do, the van we have right now, the transporting the food to Independence, is probably, 30 years old, 300-something thousand miles on it. It's time for a new van. So we're looking at a new van. I've also discussed with special education about helping produce higher quality meals for the adult education over at Shenandoah. So we talked about even giving them some, myself and maybe hiring someone to do a kitchen, like a cooking class where they can get those life skills when they do graduate that. They have the basic knowledge of how to prepare their meals. So we are going to end up transporting meals, high school meals to them and then also education on them cooking their own products. So we'll have a transportation van or vehicle for that. And also a food service vehicle for management. Right now, I'm using my own vehicle. The kitchen equipment, we're looking at worktop refrigerators. So the sites that have the new walk-in refrigerators, all of these stand-up refrigerators are going to be taken out. We're getting a worktop station, which is basically like this. It's just a worktop countertop and either a cooler or a freezer down below. That'll increase the amount of workspace they have to prepare the meals, plate things up. So all new equipment as far as those sites go. Convection ovens, we're looking at propane and natural gas, and that's every site except for Pine Grove. Working at a Vulcan gas kettle for Jackson Elementary, as well as Ione Elementary. Also, Ione Elementary and Amador High School, we're looking at getting the dishwashing machines. That'll actually help alleviate. So they already have them now. We're just going to replace what they have. As far as infrastructure, the floor remodel, Ione Junior High School, we're looking at hopefully, fingers crossed, we can get everything done. That would be great to get this summer. But new floor, new Ansel system, 2 double-deck ovens, a 4-burner stove, and then they can do whatever they want there. Replacing the carpet at Jackson Junior High. I mean, that kitchen's an afterthought right now, basically what it is. It's like, hey, let's get in here, let's vamp it as best we can. The carpet does need to come out, so we're gonna look at replacing that carpet, get that thing out of there and make it actual, a kitchen floor, like it should be. We're also gonna upgrade the sub panels of Jackson Junior because, like I said, he was saying, if we plug in a hot plate, that's what they cook their sauce on, by the way, a hot plate. If they turn that on, it kicks the power out to their hot box. So they have to take a table, move to the other side of the room, plug in, cook what they gotta do. If someone comes in and puts a vacuum in, it kicks off the power. So that, we're gonna have to get dedicated sub panels just for our equipment, which will alleviate that. And they're also gonna get more equipment also. Same thing with the workstations. Right now, they have tables in there. I think you saw those tables, James. Those tables were replaced with worktop cold stations for more storage. If they're gonna produce more meals, they need more storage space.
And they're getting an oven too, like a real oven, or no?
Unfortunately, unless we have an Ansel system put in that building, they can't have an oven because it's.
What does that mean, Ansel?
So an Ansel system is basically a ventilation hood. So if it gets to a certain temperature, it kicks off with the KPK powder, purple powder, and puts out the fire. And it also vents out all the heat. So Ione Junior is why they also don't have one down there, because there's no ventilation system. There will be. But so if it's something we're going to stay at Jackson Junior, we're gonna definitely have to look at something longer term there, because it's really not a kitchen. So
If you
unfortunately.
can't bake anything or have an oven, that I don't even, I mean,
What's that?
kudos to them for even making that many meals.
What they do, they're amazing for what they do. All my staff, I mean, I give kudos, I mean, they're really the ones doing all this. I put it together, I do the paperwork, that kind of stuff, but they're the ones who actually make it happen. So kudos to them, all the glory goes to them for sure. And then we're looking at, we've had problems in the past with, especially up in Pioneer and Ione Warehouse. In the past, we've lost power. Well, if we lose power on a break and we don't know about it, we've just lost $3,000 to $4,000 worth of food at Pioneer. It's happened twice. Warehouse, we lost almost 800 cases of food one time. Thankfully, it was all commodity, so it was a total of $1,600. So it wasn't that big of a deal, but it is. So we're looking at getting standby generators for all the sites that have the walk-in refrigerators and freezers dedicated just to those units. So if something comes up, they'll kick on and we'll save product. Also, a temperature monitoring system on all of our units. So again, if we're on break, I get an alert on my phone that says, hey, one of your refrigerators is at 46 degrees, we might want to check it, I can make a call. There's been multiple times where refrigerators have gone out and we've lost product out of that refrigerator. And this would alleviate that.
Mr. Pingree, you mentioned how last year Argonaut got a new walk-in refrigerator. Does that have a generator backup, or?
They do not yet, no.
But there's not one specified in your plans for it?
Yeah, the standby, on the future, standby generators for all the
So we have one tied to other on that spreadsheet or the PDF, so that is what that'll be tied for. It could just be we missed the drop down on that one to put it there.
Okay. Just checking.
No, that's good. Thank you.
So yeah, our future steps, what we're looking to increase meal options at all the elementary sites. Again, this is with the proper equipment and extra staff. We cannot put any more on what they're doing now. You got Ione Elementary, you got 2 people, they're serving basically 380 lunches by themselves, and it starts at 10 and doesn't end until noon. It's just the way that site works. Jackson Elementary is the same way. They're doing 350 meals with 2 people. And it's a nonstop back-to-back. So if we want to increase anything into that, we're going to need extra refrigeration. We're going to need extra people to alleviate some of that stress on them. So that's one of our goals. We increase the availability of organic produce on all our, every site has a full salad bar. Every child has to walk through that salad bar and grab something. So we can offer, more organic, we can offer more options on that. Again, looking to upgrade the Ione Junior and Jackson Junior kitchens, work with CalFresh to implement the Farm to School program, improve our summer feeding meals from sack lunches to hot lunches, hire additional staff to continue to improve our program, and then this will hopefully get submitted to the CDE for their approval. And just to get a heads up for this equipment, once we get approval, the process is I send every piece of equipment spec sheet to the Environmental Health Department here. They approve the product it's NSF rated. I get that back. I get in touch with the state. I talk to them. I get pre-approval process for that equipment. I then go and order that equipment. Hopefully it's in stock. Even if it's in stock, it could be 4 to 6 months out delivery. So it's going to be a process. A fun process, but it's going to be a process.
All worth it at the end.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, wonder if anybody has any questions.
I appreciate the presentation. It's one thing to sit up here and say things and not know, but then it's another thing to say things and know now. And I appreciate your grind, your hustle, your get down, everything you do for the district. Love it. Your staff is beyond amazing. Their get down is impeccably amazing. I have brought up numerous times that my concern is the quality of the food. And I don't mean quality as in like bad food for the kids, like donuts, gummy worms, and Pop-Tarts.
Sure.
I'm around kids a lot of them, and I hear coaches and even myself as a coach, like, guys, stay away from the food. You're not gonna get your nutrition there. We have refrigerators in classrooms that provide chicken breasts and peanut butter sandwiches and things like that. How can we make the quality better? And I mean, I'm not jabbing at you or your
No, I
staff or
totally get it.
anything.
So, yeah, again, I understand the perception of the school food. I really wish there wasn't so many regulations on what we can and can't do. We're only allowed to feed a high school student up to 800 calories a day, which is nothing.
You're only allowed to feed them 800 calories at all?
800
Breakfast and lunch?
800, no, for lunch only. 800 calories averaged over the course of the week. So if I have something today, it's 600, tomorrow can be, 900. All that goes into a nutrient analysis program. So everybody, it all has to be within a certain calorie, certain sodium, certain saturated fat. It is whole grain. It has to be, it's almost impossible to create a menu that's really worth anything.
Yeah, that sounds really hard. I mean, this
It
is
is.
good to know because yes, I sometimes am like, what is going on? But the red tape I can imagine is stupid. So I guess I appreciate coming in from just like the whole, I see why people just buy the thing in the bag, 'cause it probably comes from wherever they say this is fine to serve, which is ludicrous, but, so I do definitely appreciate the scratch cooking and then taking the time to get that commodity stuff, which sounds like at least real food coming, cheese and meat and all those things, so definitely that, and I like hiring more staff to try and do everything we can to get those meals to something that they won't eat, because I mean, it's true, it is definitely true that sometimes the only thing they are eating, some of the kids, is the school food,
That's
and
right.
that's it.
Sometimes it's the only
So
meal they get.
That's all they get.
Sometimes this is the most nutritious meal they get.
That they get, 100%, so.
But you get to the high school level, it's not enough to support a football player. It's not. But unfortunately, our hands are tied as what we can do.
A growing teenager.
Right, yeah, I know. I'm glad mine are out of the house. I can actually have some extra money now. But, so, and I'm sure my dad thinks the same thing when I left. But, yeah, I mean, our goal is to constantly make this a better program. And that's gonna take better equipment, more staff members, training the staff members to do that, and just kind of raising that bar, So those commodity products too, we get calls, we get our 5 deliveries, and beside that, they call me 6 or 7 times a year and say, hey, we have all this extra stuff. I've taken probably, last year, I think I took a little over 1,000 cases of food. They didn't charge me delivery, they didn't charge me for the food, because other school districts aren't utilizing commodity.
So this is kind of off topic, I don't want to take so much time, but, so what are they using then?
They're sending their commodity to a processor instead of making a burrito or paying full price for a burrito, let's say it's $90 a case, because they sent their beans, their cheese, and their tortillas and their flour. They're gonna make my burritos and I'm gonna get it for $50 a case. That's the way they use their commodity. But it's not doing anything. It's not helping out that's why they're reliant on the general fund, because they're not taking the responsibility, the ownership of just to kind of push their staff to do better and do more.
So basically what you're saying is that the labor to do it ourselves, to pay our staff to do it, is far less than paying a factory to do it and getting, less value out of the value of the commodities.
We even we took away the worker ones. We increased the worker 3s into cook bakers. We increased those people's salaries, and we increased their pay scale, and we're still making what we're making because we are buying mostly commodity.
That's good to know.
So I have a fun fact question. The pizza that you guys make, what's the calories of that? Do you know?
Off the top of my head, no. I'm trying, it's, yeah, I'll tell you, it's under 800.
Is it one of your
It's
higher
like
or lower
600
calorie
It's like, I
items?
want to say 6 something.
Jim for the win.
Because when you add the 600 for the pizza, you also got to add in everything else that goes with it, your salad bar, all that kind of stuff. All that combined,
Wait, they make you add in the salad bar as part of their
everything combined has to be under 800 calories.
That is absurd.
Well, there's not
For a
very
high
many calories on the salad bar, right?
Not mu- I
No,
mean, it
but
depends.
still, if you're talking about but still, when you're talking about high school kids.
Yeah, you also got the
girls
milk in there.
and
The
boys,
milk,
the
the
milk,
milk's
like-
part of it.
I just think statistically, like how many students never even sniff the salad.
Touch the salad bar, yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of them don't, but we are required to make sure they take something. So when they come up, if they pass that salad bar and they have nothing on their plate, we have to give them the equivalent of what they need. Elementary site and below is a half a cup. High school level is a cup. So we're supposed to be giving them a fruit or a vegetable or a combination of the two, or they take it themselves.
And then it gets wasted.
Right. So there is
And then I
legislation that's
ask-
going to say we have to offer but not take, but that's still, it hasn't happened yet. I wish it would.
But when I ask them, hey, man, why aren't you eating that? It's not good, coach. Well, okay, so.
Yeah. I'd say if you're hungry, you can grab a full salad bar. You can grab the biggest tray you want. You can grab all you want of that salad bar.
Right.
There's no restrictions on how much you can have on that. But not a lot of people, utilize that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you guys for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Very informative.
You guys get to hear that again. That was only discussion item.
It'll be back.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, Julia, I want to clarify that comment real quick. There is no action item on this regardless. It was just more of a discussion item to bring to the table. This is going to the CDE on the 15th. It just didn't need to go to the board for approval, but we wanted to bring it to the board anyway because of comments and what we've had, before.
So even with the grant funds, that doesn't have to be approved by the board?
Yeah, at this point, it's just CDE approval for this budget summary.
That's a diversion from the usual, so thank you for that clarification.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. 15.8, new high school course request for dual enrollment. Mrs. Horn?
All right, well, Mrs. Gravett comes on up. I'll draw your attention to, we have a new CTE, Health One Introduction to Public Health Science. It's a dual enrollment, and I'm sure if you have questions, Nikki would be your person to ask.
Yes, so this is a standalone course. It's part of our healthcare sector, but it's not a pathway per se. If we offer this for next year, we will be pairing it, so we're making kind of our own pathway in the sense that students would take a first semester of this Public Health 1, and then a second semester would be the med terminology that we already have, which is also dual enrollment, and then have the opportunity to do a full year externship. So that's what we're trying to work towards, to give our students the flexibility to get those 75 hours in a full year, and also add rotations. That's what our goal is with this.
That seems a lot more valuable.
Yes.
For the students.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any questions regarding this new course?
No questions, but I did want to say I'm in the medical terminology class right now, and I do know that there was a couple of juniors who there weren't enough rotations in the hospital to fit that, so I think that would be really beneficial.
Yes.
Because I know there's a lot of students who are wanting to be a part of that externship. So.
Agreed. We've grown exponentially, which is fantastic, but the hospital can only accommodate a certain number of students. So this year, by splitting the class into one at Amador and one at Argonaut, and having one in the morning and one in the afternoon, that actually helped with placements for students, so that the hospital could take double what they were normally taking. So that helped, and then we secured a couple of other placements outside of the hospital, and I'm working to get some extra placements at their, outside of the hospital in their, what do they call it?
Outpatient.
Yeah, their outpatient services, so that we can finish getting everybody placed for this year. But it's going to continue to be a good problem to have, and that's kind of what we're doing, so that students will have that extra semester to fit those 75 hours in.
So I'm going to ask a not easy question. Students that go through these courses, what career paths are they expecting to pursue or become available?
Yep, so that is a not easy question in the sense that it's pretty wide open, anything in healthcare. What I just wrote a grant for and I'm hoping to secure would add some certificate programs to Amador County Unified School District in our adult education program, which will be fantastic. And with those, I've met with the hospital CEO and we kind of narrowed the focus of what Sutter Health here is looking for, because that's our goal, is to produce, students that are able to come back to our community and serve here. So one of them being their front office, their certified medical assisting program. That's a big one. So I'm working with Diana Griffin to get that secured if the grant funding happens. So we'll know at the beginning of December if we get that grant. So we'll see.
Excellent. I'm glad I asked that.
Yes. So, yeah.
Yeah. Are there any other questions?
I have a question. So is the medical term and then the public health science, is that one semester and one semester in the same year?
Yes.
So then the following year it would be 75?
Yep.
Okay, so the sophomores, as of this year, would get the option to take that next year, so then their senior year, they could take the 75 hours?
So there'll be 1 year of kind of like an overlap. That's a great question, because right now you'll have students that are possibly juniors, going to be seniors, that are going to want to take the externship portion. So they would be able to take 1 semester of med term, either it'll probably be in the spring, and do vice versa.
Okay.
So we'll have to figure out how to navigate that 1 overlap year, but our goal is to then bring it into where you enter your junior year, you get your first semester, your second semester, then your senior year is for your externship.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
See, they're already planning on it.
I know. I know. It's a great class, so.
Very exciting. Thank you so much. Are there any additional questions? And you need an approval for this, correct?
Yes, please.
I move to approve item 15.8, new high school course request dual enrollment.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Student advisory vote, Ms. Gilliam?
Yes.
Ms. Patterson?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Crow?
Yes.
Mrs. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Marzano?
Aye.
Mr. Whitaker?
Yes.
I'm also a yes. 15.9, job share contract for 24-25 school year. Dr. Palazuelos.
Good evening again, trustees. Before you is a recommendation for approval for a job share agreement between Susan Ross and Tony Lindy. This is a job share assignment that would be at Sutter Creek Primary. The document that is attached to this item has the signatures of our principal, Ms. Tia Peters, Ms. Ross, who's the teacher under contract, and Ms. Lindy, who is an appropriately credentialed share. Recommending approval for this agreement.
Are there any questions for Dr. Palazuelos regarding the job share? No. If there are no questions, then I will need a motion and a second from one of our trustees.
I will move that we approve the item 15.9, the job share contract for the 24-25 school year.
And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Student advisory vote, Ms. Gilliam?
Yes.
Ms. Patterson?
Yes.
Mr. Crow?
Yes.
Mrs. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Marzano?
Aye.
Mr. Whitaker?
Yes.
I'm also a yes. And thank you to Mrs. Lindy for stepping forward and taking her part in that. We are so grateful that our retired teachers, Mrs. Ross included, continue to be so dedicated to our students and meet this need for us and for our students. Thank you. 1510, notice of intent to employ teacher on a provisional internship permit. Dr. Palazuelos.
Good evening again, trustees. This is a notice of intent to employ a teacher on a provisional internship permit. After an exhaustive and diligent search to try to find a suitable credentialed teacher for the mild moderate class at Jackson Junior High School, we are bringing this forward for your consideration. The individual is named in the document. Her name is Rachel Connolly, and this would provide the provisional intern permit. We recommend approval.
Are there any questions for Dr. Palazuelos?
I move to approve item 1510, notice of intent to employ teacher on a provisional internship permit.
I'll second.
Thank you. For the student advisory vote, Ms. Gilliam?
Yes.
Ms. Patterson?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Crow?
Yes.
Mrs. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Marzano?
Aye.
Mr. Whitaker?
Yes.
I'm also a yes. That concludes our discussion action items. We have 2 information-only items. First up, we have the 24-25 Education Protection Account, also known as EPA, spending determination presented by Mr. Norton. I see that this, the intent of this information-only item is to make these items publicly available prior to a public hearing, which is scheduled to happen next month.
That is correct, yes. This, really, this one and the next item. Education protection account is essentially a required account that we need to have for, sorry, I wasn't really expecting to present on this, so. So this is the information that we will be discussing at the next meeting. I wanted to make it publicly available so the public had an opportunity to review it.
Let's just note that these items are available then. Does anybody want to ask questions about it? This is very early days for these 2 items.
Because we will have a public hearing with this and then the formal.
And the full presentation.
Correct.
Next month.
I'm okay.
Okay. Okay, so that brings us to reports. Mr. Critchfield.
Yes, thank you. I first want to congratulate both Julia and Jim. This is their final school board meeting as trustees. You're always welcome to come back and sit in the audience, but this is their final meeting as trustees, and I just appreciate both of them. Obviously, they've been operating as president and clerk as well, which assigns extra duties outside of these meetings, including preparation meetings with me, and I appreciate both of them. Julia, I need to call frequently as the board president to talk through challenges and get advice, and she's always very astute in everything and her perspective on everything, and I appreciate that. And Jim is my hawk for board agendas, where Friday evening I get a text or a call, and he's very good at catching any minor errors that might come up. And so I just appreciate both of you and your dedication. It's not easy being a trustee, and you don't get a lot of praise, but get a lot of criticism. And so we have a small gift for you that we'll give you after the meeting, but I just want to express my appreciation to both of you. And also here in the audience tonight, I want to recognize Ken Farrar and Peter Gale. It is not official, but the election is not certified, but it appears to be that they have both won their respective elections in their districts. And so we look forward to our December 18th meeting where they will both be sworn in as our newest board members. And then I just want to go back to the food service presentation. There's been a lot of questions about it. I really want to express my appreciation to Mr. Norton and Mr. Pingree for all the work they did on that. Mr. Pingree mentioned it a couple of times, but I just know being CBO for 7 years and being at many conferences where CBOs were bemoaning the fact that their food service program was overspending and the general fund was then obligated to cover that. He has been very fiscally sound in everything he does, which has major benefits to the district, and I'm happy to see the direction they're taking for all of the improvements. And with that, I don't have any other updates, except I hope everyone enjoys the upcoming holiday, as we won't be together again until December 18th. I don't have any more updates.
Thank you, Mr. Critchfield. Okay, one of my favorite parts of the evening from our student board members. Ms. Gilliam, would you like to start us off?
Yes, of course. So I guess I'll start with athletics. So since our last board meeting, we obviously had the big game. And although that did not exactly go Argonauts' way this year, the festivities that kind of led up to it were super enjoyable. So our theme this year was Bring the Bell Home for the Holidays, which meant that during our downtown rally, each class float represented a different holiday. So the seniors were Christmas, the juniors were Halloween, sophomores were 4th of July, and the freshmen were Valentine's Day. That's always one of my favorite events. I always feel proud that the underclassmen even get a float down Main Street. It is no small feat. So yeah, and then most of our sports right now are transitioning from the fall season to the winter season. So the only 2 sports that are still competing are cross country, who are running in their sections this upcoming weekend. And then our cheer team actually placed first in the UCA regional competition, which earned them the chance to compete at the National Cheerleading Convention in Florida. So they're currently fundraising for that, and we are very, very proud of them. It was quite the accomplishment. Something that is just going on in our school this week that I think is going to be really enjoyable is we had one student, ASB, who has a passion for creating escape rooms. So we're having escape room week, and we're going to have different teams compete to try to escape out of our library. So whoever team gets the fastest time wins and gets a prize, and I think that was just a really cool way for him to be creative and express one of his passions. And then also upcoming is our annual Thanksgiving rally. So at Argonaut, we have a saying called Mustang Family. So it's just something that kind of binds us. So we think of like, oh, Thanksgiving, what does that make us think of? Obviously, family. So we decided to have a Family Feud rally a couple years ago, and we've been continuing that tradition. So we send out real surveys to the student body, and we get real responses, and then we have our classes compete as different families to try to answer the questions. And it's just a really great way to kick off Thanksgiving break and the holidays. And yeah, we really enjoy it, and we've been having a good time with that for a couple years now. So
That sounds fun. Thank you so much.
of course.
Ms. Patterson?
Okay, so I'm going to start with ASB. We also had our downtown rally, which was really fun. We also do little floats and just like cool festivities where we all just dress up our floats and stuff. And this year the juniors or the seniors, okay, well, I was in the Scooby-Doo gang, so I was like obviously preparing for that the whole time, and it was really fun. And we ended up like coming out winning, and it was just really fun. And then we had a big old bonfire after with a bunch of speeches from the football players, some adult figures that everyone really looks up to, like Caleb Cagle. And then we've started our canned food drive this week, or like collecting the cans. We started it last week. But that's always like such a friendly competition between all the teachers at our school, because like we always award the teacher with the most cans, and it's a really good way to like support the community and the food bank and all that. For our academics, our AP Government class had their mock election, which is really fun. It's like they take political parties and then their groups are assigned to like debate over them. And I actually got the chance to go to them and see them this year, and it was really interesting and fun to watch. And all the Gov students, as in the seniors, they get to like participate and poll and vote and like do all this stuff for them, which is like, it's really fun and inclusive. For sports, along with Amador, we also have 3 people going to sections for our cross-country team. And basketball, girls and boys have their first games this Friday and Saturday. Soccer starts up next week, and wrestling, and we're all like working hard for the start of our season or getting prepped for the preseason. And ASB has been diligently working to prep all of our spirit days and get all that stuff ready for this upcoming season. So we're really excited.
Thank you so much. Mr. Crow?
Pretty short. Just want to thank you and Julia and Jim for the last 2 years on the board. It's been a pleasure. And welcome Ken and Peter. Look forward to working with you when you start next year.
Mrs. Parker?
I don't have a report, but congratulations to you and Jim. Jim, really enjoy your retirement this time. And I look forward to working with our new board members as well. So.
Mr. Marzano, do you have a report for us?
I appreciate student board member Gilliam for bringing it up. I too am going to bring up the Argonaut cheer team because my daughter is one of them. on the team. And the fundraising event that they are doing is December 13th, 6 p.m. at the Evelyn Bishop Hall in Ione. I believe the district shared on their Facebook page the flyer, which had a QR code that you can scan to purchase tickets. The goal for the fundraising is $50,000 for every cheerleader to get to Orlando, Florida for however many days it is, flight there and back, transportation throughout their trip, all meals. They're also going to be able to have an opportunity to go to Walt Disney World. Each cheerleader, I believe it was $1,600, and the goal for the team is $50,000. It would be great if the community could get behind this cheer team and see them on their way to Florida. I too would like to congratulate the new board members and thank the outgoing board members for their commitment to the community and not be the ones that just talk. They were about it. I appreciate that. And I believe that's all.
Thank you, Mr. Marzano. Mr. Whitaker?
Well, since the last meeting, I did have a chance to do a boardwalk at Argonaut High School, and one thing I saw that I really liked was Principal Hunkins was working on getting the site ready for the influx if consolidation happens. And even if it doesn't happen, it's still improving the campus. And she's came up with a plan to develop where the teacher would leave their classroom for 2 or 3 weeks, and they would meet in the library. They set up a temporary classroom in there, and during that 2 or 3 weeks, Charlie, one of our maintenance worker fours, would go in and repaint new baseboards and really make the rooms look really nice. So I want to commend that because it is something that's sorely needed because most of the portables there are in excess of 20 years old, if not all of them, and they really look nice. So I really wanted to, mention that. This being my last board meeting, I want to thank the entire board for working with you, even though we may not have always agreed on every subject. We listened to each other, and we, took the other person's point of view to mind, and it's been a real pleasure. So thank you.
All right, you ready? I actually very much enjoyed tonight's meeting, and in particular, Mrs. Clement, because she used a phrase, and it just is really going to embody what I'm going to say, and it is a note of gratitude, because I am so grateful for this 4 years to be able to serve this school district and my community, and it is not an exaggeration to say that I have gained and grown so much more than I expected for that experience. So I am so grateful for our teachers. They are so dedicated to our students. I am grateful for our community who comes out to participate in the governance of our schools. I am grateful for the parents who advocate so passionately for their students. It really does take the whole village. And being on this school board has really illustrated the importance of all the parts participating together. I am grateful for Mr. Critchfield for holding down the fort and being a point of stability for us in a few years of a lot of turnover. I think that he is the right person to take us through this year of transition, and I wish him all the best. And similar to Cabinet, thank you for sticking with us, and I hope to see great things from all of you. I do have to second the one comment from Jeannie Jensen about the volunteer application, because it also applies to the parent registration every year. And this year I got to do it for 2 high schools and not just 1 for my last student. It's got to get streamlined. So That was a very timely comment because that was going to be my parting complaint. I am even grateful for being a trustee during the COVID experience because it really showed you what was important about the school experience for our students. I naively began COVID shutdowns thinking that, oh, my students will be fine because I'm their mom and I'm mean. And that wasn't true. So, you know, there are surprises and things you don't know, even about your own students. So if you have the courage to run for school board, and you sit in these seats and you sit in closed session, you are going to learn so many things that you will never know because your child didn't take that path. And it has opened my eyes to many things. First and foremost, how grateful I am for being part of it. So that being said, we're going to close this meeting. Thank you again. And it's not coming up, Jared. Okay. Our next meeting is Wednesday, December 18th. We will be swearing in both Mr. Farrar and Mr. Gill, we think. Tentatively scheduled to be held here at the Amador County Administration Building. Open session will start at 6:30. We are adjourned. It is 9:01. Do you guys want to roll right into the county meeting? Do you need a break? We'll stop for one moment so that the young ladies can depart. Thank you, everyone, for making it to the end of the meeting. Thank you.
To play soccer now. Yes.
Yeah, again, resolution. Really?
Do you want to go?
I wouldn't either.
I'm like, nah, this is almost 5 months and literally glued to my body. And I'm like, you're gonna be fine. You aren't going to starve. There's actually like hundreds of ounces of milk you could drink in the freezer. You just will not because you are partial. Yeah.
When he was a baby, he would starve himself all day. He wouldn't eat all day.
When you were at work?
Until I came home from, and then he would want to eat for 2 hours straight.
Yeah. I cannot. This is what she's gonna do. She will be awake for multiple hours when I get home. Just like literally doing that all night.
I was so glad he teased early. She is teasing early. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm so scared. That she's never gonna by 7 or 8 months, they'll wean. I want real food. Yeah. Give me those mashed potatoes. Yeah. Yep.
Hey, that's what I was doing yesterday.
Oh, but they're so cute, I know.
It's true. These are the things.
I like it.
All right, we're gonna call to order. Do we need to extend time? We won't, right?
No,
Okay, we're gonna call to order at 9:06. This is the Amador County Office of Education meeting. We have some stalwarts in the room tonight who are gonna stay to the far end. Yay. Everybody is in attendance. Mr. Critchfield, do we have any deletions or corrections to the agenda?
We do not.
Okay, we do not have any presentations or recognitions for the county meeting. Do we have any representatives from our employee organizations? No. Okay. We do have one public comment card. Miss Tracy Hinman, please. Welcome.
It's been a good day. Thank you. Cabinet Superintendent Critchfield, Board. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. First, I will just apologize in advance if this has been covered, been spoken to, or it's in black and white, because I will admit I did not read the board packet agenda prior to right now. But I did want to bring up a question about the ethnic studies that was brought up during the unified portion of the meeting. Will this, so I have lots of questions and comments. Again, that's why my pre-apology, because I'm wondering if ACOE will have this requirement as well, because there are high school students who are ACOE students who the creating an alternative path to a high school diploma is in the works. So I'm curious if that is going to be part of their requirement as well. And then I have some, like I said, lots of questions. It was commented that this is a framework and there's not a curriculum that goes with it, although I know there's been a panel, or I don't know if that's the right word, working towards creating this curriculum. Typically, correct me if I'm wrong, but when curriculum or materials are created for a new course, there's an opportunity for the public to review these. As a community member, you know, I have, I'm just gonna be honest, not complete trust, and that's just, I think, healthy. I think it's healthy as a community member to want to be a part of seeing what is being presented to students. Even though my children are grown, you know, my grandchildren are coming through at some point, and so, you know, I would want to know what is actually being presented. Let's just face it, there's all kinds of fear and unknowns when we speak of things, just as Mr. Marzano brought up. Is this critical race theory? And no, but, well, what is actually going to be presented? If it's simply a framework, how often might those materials change? If there's a new teacher teaching the course or there's a new principal on site, that happens a lot. How will that change what those materials look like? Will community members, especially parents, have the opportunity to view these? And then I know the question was brought up, can we see this, but it's coming to next board meeting, that it's an action item. I mean, how much time will you all as board members have to look over the actual materials, quote unquote, I mean, that's the curriculum, even though it's a framework, before you vote? Will there be any opportunity for public comment on those materials? Because it was said you'll have them, but is that 24 hours in advance, an hour in advance, a couple weeks in advance? Those are some questions that I have as a community member. And then also, I appreciate that I did check that the slides, I didn't read as fast as those slides clicked. I'm kind of a slow reader, are linked to the agenda. maybe others read a little slower like I do. Will they be a little more obvious, maybe on the front page of the website, that ethnic studies is coming? This is kind of the framework. I understand that it's a directed class by CDE, but we have lots of, it sounded like leeway in how we provide it as a district. So those are kind of all my questions, comments, concerns as a community member. And I mean, I'm still a parent, even though they're not currently at this school site. So that was all I had on that subject.
Thank you.
Is my 3 minutes up? Okay.
Sorry.
Can I give a shout out to the Workability program, because I just love it. I just want to thank you over and over and over, and especially all the community members who support that, because it rocks.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Tracy. So moving on to our consent agenda, are there any questions? I would like to point out that the MOU with Nexus is on here as well. Are there any questions for the consent agenda? Okay, then we are ready for a motion.
I move to approve item 8, consent agenda.
I'll second. For the roll call vote, Mr. Crow?
Yes.
Mrs. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Marzano?
Aye.
Mr. Whitaker?
Yes.
I'm also a yes. We have no communications for tonight. For discussion action items, we only have one. It is a companion item to the district item. It is for the GAN resolution. Are there any additional questions for Mr. Norton? And if someone would make a motion to approve, I would be grateful.
I make a motion we approve item 10.1, the GAN resolution.
I'll second.
Thank you. For the roll call vote, Mr. Crow?
Yes.
Mrs. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Marzano?
Aye.
Mr. Whitaker?
Yes.
I'm also a yes. We have several information-only items. I'm going to read them off and give you an opportunity to ask questions if you have them. Current personnel recommendations. We have CSEA updated salary schedule, CSEA successor contract agreement, and then we have the EPA companion item also on here. Does anybody have any questions or comments on these information-only items? Mr. Critchfield, did you have any additional report for us tonight?
No, just to get it on the record to thank you and Jim again for being board members, your county board members as well.
Thank you. Mr. Crow?
Nothing to add, thank you.
Okay. Mrs. Parker?
No.
Mr. Marzano?
Nothing.
Mr. Whitaker?
No.
Have a good night, everybody. We are adjourned. It is 9:13. Our next county meeting will be Wednesday, December 18th, here at the Amador County Administration